Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So the Saints lost to the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football, 42-34. The Saints season is over. Let there be no illusions of grandeur. Let there be no ambiguity. The Saints season is over. At 2-4, the probability of making the playoffs was somewhere around 10%. That was before you went on the road and lost last night, the manner in which you did. You're 2-5. You've got a little time to take some time away, maybe get healthy now with 10 days and before you welcome in Las Vegas. But before we even delve into the game or anything about it, let's just get this out of the way, okay? And I'm not trying to just tell you, hey, punt the season and don't pay attention anymore. That's terrible for us. I mean, obviously, here we want you to listen and watch and care. I mean, it's better when the teams are good. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that they still have some chance of making something out of this season. The math doesn't work. I've said this a ton. You're 2-5 through 7 games. You have 10 games to go. You had 10 games to go. The Saints a year ago were 9-8. You would have to go 7-3 over your final 10 to get to 9-8. You have to go 7-3 over your final 10 just to get to 9-8. Show me 7 wins. And that's assuming, by the way, 9-8 is not going to get you in the postseason as a wild card. That's assuming 9-8 would be good enough to win the division, which I don't think it will be, by the way. Raiders, you could win that game. Raiders have had a bit of a slow start. Ravens, look at those 2 games. Who has a better quarterback? Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, or whatever it is the Saints are going to do. You know the answer. You go to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's a mess, and that's a winnable game, but it's on the road in Pittsburgh. You're home against the Rams. You're at the Niners. That's going to be a loss. You're at Tampa, so you go coast to coast, cross country, at Niners, at Bucks. You're home against the Falcons, which is a winnable game, but they're 3-3 right now. But still, in the Dome, winnable game against Atlanta. You're at Cleveland on Christmas Eve, and remember, Deshaun Watson's going to be back by then. You're at Philly, who's the best team in the league, on New Year's Day. And then you're home against the Panthers, who are fire sailing their whole team, so that's a winnable game as well. I'll tell you, at Pittsburgh, home against Atlanta, home against Carolina, it's 3 games where I might think the Saints could be favored, and they may not be favored on the road at Pittsburgh. But that's 3 I think they could win. You need to find 7 wins just to get to 9-8 and hope that's enough to win the division to get you in the postseason. The season's over, okay? It's disappointing. We haven't even flipped the calendar to November. It's not even Halloween, and the Saints season's over. We haven't felt this since the Bountygate year, so it's unusual. It's uncomfortable. A lot of the players said the same thing. Alvin Kamara apparently spoke to the team after the game. Tre'Quan Smith relayed a lot of this after the game. Quoting Tre'Quan after the game, said, quote, AK said, we got to find our spot. This losing mentality, that's not Saints football. We're not used to it. It's true. All these guys, all they've known is a team in the playoffs or competing to get in the playoffs. I mean, Kamara came in 2017. Last year was the first time he missed the playoffs. And they were 9-8, and they were right on the doorstep. So it is a very uncomfortable feeling. But unfortunately, it's a feeling the Saints as an organization are going to have to get used to because there's no fixing this short term. Specifically, though, with last night, and I don't want to go too deeply into the nuance of the game, but it's a lot of what we talked about. The Saints defense let him down again. And I know there were 2 pick sixes, but even without the 2 pick sixes, your defense allowed 28 points in the ballgame. 28 points to a team that scored 9 a week ago against Seattle, which has the second to worst defense in the league. One of the most anemic offenses in the NFL put up 28 points against your defense. That's what's going on with the Saints right now. Saints offense, even with all their issues, and we're going to talk about them in a second, but you move the ball and you put up 34 points. That should be good enough to win every time you play in the NFL. The Saints offense has moved the ball. They've been able to gain yards. They've been able to put up points. As much as we want to talk about the quarterbacks and who's not there and all that sort of stuff, they've moved the ball. They've put up points. The Saints defense is the problem. I'm not excusing the pick sixes. Again, we're getting there. But there's one thing in particular today that really, really, really pisses me off. And I heard it last night from Dennis Allen. And it has led me to this point where I cannot support Dennis Allen anymore. Because what we know inherently is some coaches are lieutenants and some are generals. He is a lieutenant. And this proved it last night when he was asked what's his biggest concern with his team.
My biggest concern is that we haven't had, the health of our players. We got into this game tonight, and Roby goes out in the first series, and so, we're really down to two corners, and this is a big, 11 personnel team that's going to throw three wide receivers out there, and it made it challenging.
His biggest concern is the health, the injuries to his players. Play it again, please, just the beginning of it.
My biggest concern is that we haven't had, the health of our players.
We haven't had the health of our players. Hey, let me ask you a question. Did y'all keep an eye on the injury report all week? Yeah, it was a lot of Saints players on it. Arizona was without its starting center, without its best receiver, Hollywood Brown, without their place kicker. They had to go sign Rodrigo Blankenship off the street to bring him in to kick. He made a 50-yarder yesterday, missed a PAT, made a couple of field goals as well. They had a half dozen starters unavailable. The team you played was down 6 starters in that game, including their kicker, their center, and their best wide receiver. They're not complaining about it. Hey, Dennis Allen, are injured players the reason you're dead last in the NFL in penalties? No, it's because you have an undisciplined, poorly coached roster. Are injured players the reason you lead the NFL in turnovers? No, it's because you have undisciplined, poorly coached players. That ain't got nothing to do with injuries. You're playing Tampa Bay, and Mark Ingram fumbles at the 10-yard line when you're going in for a score to take the lead in the second half. Mark Ingram ain't an injured player. It's a veteran player. You're playing in Carolina. Alvin Kamara, fumble, scoop and score. Is that an injured player? Let's not act like these are scrubs off the street who are screwing up. I mean, you got a guy like Rashid Shaheed who's got 2 NFL touches, and both of them are touchdowns. And in both games, after he scored a touchdown, he didn't touch the ball again. I'm sorry. What does that have to do with an injury, Dennis Allen? You can't tackle. The Cincinnati Bengals throw a pass in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go to Jamar Chase. Bradley Roby, Tyrann Mathieu. I'm sorry, are those not starters? You traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson because you had Bradley Roby to put him in the slot. Tyrann Mathieu is one of your free agent acquisitions. We all love Tyrann. There ain't no slander here. But 2 guys had an opportunity to make that play and didn't. That's your defense. This is why this pissed me off. That is deflecting and excuse making, and that ain't something a leader does. That's not what a winning head coach does. Oh, we got all these injuries. Your injuries had zero to do with that loss. Zero. Do you want to talk about tactics? How about at the end of the game last night, where if you made it to the end? The Saints were down 2 scores. Touchdown, 2-point conversion, field goal is what they needed. Al Michaels on the broadcast is going, well, they could kick the field goal here. It's a 48-yarder, well within Will Lutz's range. It was more than a minute to go in the game. They're going to have to get the field goal, onside kick, and score again. But they needed the field goal. Al Michaels is saying, well, I guess, what do we know? Saints run 3 more plays. You have alternating penalties that eventually cancel each other out. The Saints end up wasting time, kicking the field goal anyway from 45 yards. They gain 3 yards. Will Lutz drilled it. They didn't get the onside kick, but that is just elementary at the point. The point is, you had an opportunity strategically to get the 3 points and save more clock, and you didn't do it. Everyone that questioned it, listen, I'm not coming at you with hindsight to say hindsight's 2020. I was okay with Dennis Allen being hired. He wasn't my favorite choice, but I was okay with it. So this isn't me criticizing the hire. This is me now with this sample size understanding this hire will not work. Because you have a guy that's a lieutenant, not a general. I understood the thinking behind hiring Dennis Allen. Well, Saints have won. You keep the structure in place. He had a head coaching opportunity before, and he was at a terrible organization with bad management. He's got Matt McGloin playing quarterback. All the things that were bad. And you go, okay, look, I get it. But now he had that experience. Now it's a second opportunity. Better structure, better roster. He's been here. You got a lot of the systems in place. He learned under Sean Payton. A lot of it makes sense. Like, I see how that could work. I get that line of thinking. So I was okay with them hiring Dennis Allen. But now through 7 games, and the way they've started, and as much as he's botched, and as much as his defense has gone to hell in a handbasket, and the personnel decisions they made that have gone belly up, what has he done well? Like, the honeymoon's over, and the reality is this guy is not going to win as a head coach in the NFL. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I mean, he made over the Saints defense when they were terrible on defense into a dominant top 5 unit. But as a head coach, he is a failure. And he will not win as a head coach in this league. Because what the Saints have ahead of them now is an impossible climb. You're missing the playoffs this year. You don't have top draft assets next year. And none of the players with any value are tradable because their contracts are so bad. So you're stuck. Unless if Jameis Winston comes back healthy and becomes an all-pro, or you use a middle-round pick and find Russell Wilson or someone like that in round 3 or 4, which is, I guess it's possible, but I don't think anybody's thinking that's probable, you're toast. And he'll lose, and he'll have losing seasons for as long as they let him be the head coach, and he'll get fired, and you'll have to push the reset button at some point with somebody else. Today is as low a point as the New Orleans Saints organization has been since the day Sean Payton was hired. There's no other way to say it. The trajectory under Payton from the day he was hired after the 2005 season has been upward. With bumps and dips, but again, the scale is up. Today the arrow is pointing down. And it will continue to point down for as long as Dennis Allen's the head coach. That last night was so discouraging to hear him blame all of this on injuries, when injuries have nothing to do with the things that are inherently his responsibility as the head coach that he will not acknowledge. That you can't fix. That is not fixable. If you're going to sit there at a podium after that performance, and look, you want me to crush Andy Dalton? I'll crush Andy Dalton. What are you doing throwing the ball in the middle of the end zone in triple coverage when you have a lead and you're trying to build on your lead? What are you doing not seeing Isaiah Simmons? Well, that's why Andy Dalton got booted by the Cowboys and the Bears. That's why he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. That's why he's a backup. Okay, Andy Dalton's not a good player. He's a serviceable backup in this league with a lot of experience, but he's never going to be a starter that's going to lead a team anywhere again. We know that. We know what Andy Dalton is right now, okay? And he shoulders a lot of blame for what happened. But the issues with the Saints are so much bigger than Andy Dalton throwing 2 pick sixes. And they're not going to get better this year or in the foreseeable future with Dennis Allen as head coach. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.